Rick remembers a time in his childhood when he read a book about a hero who fought the ultimate monster, Kaiser to obtain the ethereal records. In the end, the hero failed to defeat Kaiser, so he left the ethereal records for future generations of adventurers to find. This was the moment when Rick first decided he wanted to become an adventurer, just like the hero in the book's story. However, his mother wasn't enthusiastic about the idea of him becoming an adventurer because the job was very dangerous. So, she gently told Rick that she would be more comfortable if he chose a different career. Rick's father was even less inclined to take risks and told Rick that he should get a real job before throwing his life away as an adventurer. One day during an examination, Rick was with his doctor, who informed him that he possessed an innate skill. Rick was in disbelief because innate skills are extremely rare, making him very similar to the hero Yamato. However, the doctor reminded him that innate skills are not things that can be awakened through hard work. They will take some time before he can use his ability. Nevertheless, Rick was as happy as he could be, because this brought him one step closer to being able to declare himself a successful adventurer to his parents. The next day, Rick woke up and told his parents that he was a successful adventurer. His friends told him that he had an innate ability and that it would be amazing once he could finally use it. But days quickly turned into weeks, and weeks into months, and eventually, Rick had to come to terms with the fact that his innate skill would never manifest. His friends were sympathetic and encouraged him to try to become an adventurer anyway, because most adventurers don't have innate abilities anyway. Additionally, adventurers earn a lot of money, so it's not a bad job. But the reason Rick wanted to become an adventurer was because he dreamed of becoming one, not for the money, but to become like the hero Yamato. Since he couldn't become the adventurer he hoped to be, he decided to get a real job after all. Rick told his parents about his decision, and they were very happy to hear that Rick had finally given up on his dreams and was ready to get a hard job like an ordinary person. The next few years passed with Rick learning the ropes of the receptionist job and watching countless adventurers who were all living his dream. Over time, Rick became more and more pessimistic about reality until he finally began to accept his modest life and enjoy the time he spent with his friends and family. One day, while looking through his old books, he found the storybook of the legendary adventures of Yamato, but by this time, it was nothing more than an old fairy tale he once believed in. Rick goes to work the next day, and Alyssa had just been hired at that time, so she was struggling to keep up with all the paperwork. Rick came to help her a little, and reminded her that nothing is impossible, and that she needs to speed up the learning process because she would master it sooner or later. There was also something else he wanted to tell her, because from what he had seen around town, the monsters had become more active, so a quest to subdue them was likely to appear soon. Alyssa was grateful for the advice, because she could now prepare the forms in advance. While Alyssa left to complete her task, adventurer Rick returned, friend of Zad, and had something to show Rick, who had just come back from his promotion exam, and was proud to say that he was officially a rank B adventurer from that day forward. Rick was happy for his friend, but would be lying if he said he didn't feel jealous, seeing someone else live his dream of becoming an adventurer. To deal with the jealousy, Rick did what any responsible adult would do, and drank late into the night to make the pain go away. But even in his drunken state, the difference between him and Zad was clear. Zad had been promoted all the way to rank B, and was living Rick's life, while Rick had been sitting in the same chair for 14 years at this point, with nothing to show for it other than a steady income and a few small annual raises. It's not as if he thinks he wasted his life, but Rick can't help but wonder how far he could have gone if he had chosen to become an adventurer after all. At that moment, Rick heard a commotion in the middle of the town and went to check it out and see if he could help. What he saw troubled him, as for some reason there was a mid-rank ghoul in the city. Under normal circumstances, as soon as Rick saw that thing, he would have run away, but he noticed a woman walking directly into the path of the ghoul. He couldn't stand by while someone got hurt, so he ran in front of the woman to try and protect her from the ghoul, even if he couldn't really do much to stop it. As the monster approached them, Rick braced himself for a gruesome death. But before that could happen, Rionette walked in front of Rick and shredded the monster to pieces. She then told Rick that she appreciated his attempt to protect her, but there was no need to worry about her safety as she was a skilled adventurer. After that, Rick and Rionette walked together and introduced themselves to each other. Rick then said that he was really impressed by Rionette's strength there, so he asked her if she was an A rank. Rionette said she wasn't a B rank, so Rick assumed she must be an A rank. He was astonished because it was rare to meet an A rank adventurer outside the city. But Rionette corrected him again and said she wasn't an A rank either, then pulled out her S rank badge to prove her rank to Rick. The shock Rick felt was immense, as S-rank adventurers were incredibly powerful and rare, to the point that this was the first time he had actually met one. There were rumors that headquarters deliberately removed them from local guild records and oversaw their missions directly. He couldn't believe he was meeting such a legendary adventurer, but since she was there, he said he had a strange question to ask and begged Rionette not to laugh at him. Rionette assured him that she hadn't laughed even once in the 9 years since her birthday, but Rick wasn't sure if she should be proud of that. Moving forward, Rick told Rionette about the dream he had when he was younger to become an adventurer and eventually defeat Kaiser Albide. So, Rick wants to know if she thinks he can still achieve his dream if he tries to become an adventurer today, even though he is already 30 years old. After seeing how Rick acted when he thought she was in danger, Rionette is sure he has what it takes. Rick acknowledges that developing mana reserves is difficult unless done during youth, but Rionette thinks it's practically impossible to build mana reserves once you're older. Given the importance of mana reserves to adventuring, Rionette has to be honest with him and say she doesn't think Rick can succeed as an adventurer if he starts as he is now. Rick was already expecting such an answer, but it's still painful to hear. At least he finds some closure in the fact that an S-rank adventurer was the one to break the news to him, so he has no choice but to give up his dreams and settle into his ordinary life. Rionette apologizes if she made Rick feel bad, but he says it's okay because he appreciates her honesty. Besides, it's not every day he meets a beautiful lady like her, so he invites her to a meal sometime. Although he was only joking, Rionette immediately accepted the dinner invitation and offered to meet him the next day. The next day, Rick was in a really good mood, so he wanted to work harder than usual. Even when Zad came and boasted about his new B-rank status, Rick didn't show a hint of jealousy and wished him luck on his next mission. By the end of the day, Rick was happily skipping down the road to meet Rionette, hoping they might start dating if things went well on their date. But then he hears people screaming that a monster is attacking, so unfortunately his date plans are ruined. Since Rionette was supposed to meet him nearby, Rick assumes she must already be fighting the monsters, so he rushes to check on her. Although she seems fine on her own, there are a lot of monsters approaching, so Rionette asks Rick to stand back while she handles it. Moments later, the battlefield is covered with hundreds of monster pieces, and Rionette looks barely alive. But suddenly, she feels something that makes her remember the deaths of all her loved ones, and the shock causes her to fall to her knees. A monster stands tall as Rionette suffers a panic attack, and Rick is unequipped to defend her. Fortunately, Zad intervenes at the last moment and saves them both. Rick is grateful but also doesn't know why Zad is here in the first place. Then 2 other adventurers show up to help as well, and Zad tells Rick that the guild issued an emergency mission to subdue these monsters, so they all rush to help. Since they're here now, Rick needs to hurry and take Rionette to a safe place while they deal with the rest of the monsters. As the adventurers fight the monsters, Rick realizes he still feels as envious of them as he always has. After Rionette regains some of her composure, she warns Rick that it's dangerous for him to be here. Rick tries to reassure her that the B-rank adventurers will be able to handle the rest of the monsters, but Rionette says they won't be strong enough to deal with what's coming. She tells Rick that there is a dragon nearby, and she won't be able to fight it due to years of untreated trauma that cause her to lose control of the magic within her body whenever she senses a dragon's presence. Rick doesn't believe the dragon will appear here, but the next moment something flies over his head, and as he looks up, he discovers the dragon Rionette was talking about. It makes no sense for a dragon to appear in a human town, according to the guild's recommendations. If a lower-ranked adventurer ends up facing a dragon, the only thing they can do is stand still and pray for the dragon to leave on its own. No matter what happens, no one should attack the dragon first, but the mage gets scared and does exactly what the rules said not to do, resulting in the destruction of the entire rank B group. There is no way any of them can fight the dragon, so Zad tells everyone to run. But as they try to escape, they find themselves trapped in the barrier the dragon has set. It seems the dragon has no intention of letting any of them survive, and they have no chance against it. But Rick starts walking straight towards the dragon and tells it to stop because there is nothing he can do to the dragon as a receptionist. But the way Rick sees it, if he is going to die anyway, he might as well face death head-on and die as an adventurer. Rick thought he would feel better if he gave up his dream of being an adventurer, but he still feels the fire inside him driving him to work towards this goal. He picks up a rock and throws it at the dragon, doing nothing at all. But Rick's bravery inspires the other adventurers to give it their all as well, even if they know they will ultimately lose. They all start throwing every attack they have at the dragon, but it does little more than provoke the dragon to use its fire breath. Zad realizes this is probably bad, so he uses his iron body skill to protect everyone. While it allows them to survive, it does nothing but enrage the dragon. Zad still suffers a great deal of damage from it, but from the wreckage of the flames, Rick rises and walks straight towards the dragon, claiming he will achieve his dream no matter what. The dragon uses its foot to crush Rick, but on the brink of death, Rick's latent innate skill awakens, giving him the strength needed to survive after being stepped on by the dragon and easily pushed away. The amount of magic flowing from his body is so strong, it becomes visible, and Rick realizes this must be his innate skill. So while he wishes it had awakened earlier, it's better late than never. Now that he has the power to fight back, Rick becomes more confident in facing the dragon. So when the dragon fires another blast at him, he extends his hand and blocks the fire with his magical energy, and when he finally gets the chance to counterattack, Rick delivers a punch that punches a hole through the dragon's body and kills it instantly. Once it's over, Rick returns to his normal state and collapses to the ground. By the time he wakes up, he's in a hospital bed in severe physical pain. Rionette is there too and tells Rick he overloaded every magic circuit in his body during the fight with the dragon, so by all accounts he should already be dead. He had been unconscious for nearly a week, and Rionette had been waiting by his bedside the entire time because she wants to invite Rick personally to join the group she is part of, Orihalcon Fist, whose goal is to defeat Kaiser Albade, just like Rick. After seeing Rick fight bravely on his own, even when he didn't have the strength to win, giving her the confidence to say that Rick can become stronger and fight alongside the Orihalcon Fist group and become an adventurer. This was the first time anyone supported the idea of Rick becoming an adventurer, so he was moved by Rionette's faith in him. Which brings us to the present, where Rick has just officially passed the Rank E exam, so for the first time in his life, he can say he is an adventurer. This was the end of episode 4. Subscribe so you don't miss the next part.